Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to once again covering President Donald J. Trump and his annual State of the Union address. This speech is a traditional checking in with Congress and the public, which the US president is obligated to do every year, usually around this time, the first week of February. And this year, needless to say, things are going very well for the president, our country, and the conservative side. And more importantly, they're going extremely well for the United States, and also Americans at large. In fact, I dare to say the only people not enjoying the US's successes right now are the ones who are the main topics of today's video. I'm of course talking about the Democrats, and particularly a young group of minority women within them called the Squad. All of these lefties had a lot to say and many dumb things to do this week too, in an effort by them to undermine the president, probably to try and downplay how things are going so well for him and us right now. The US is doing extremely well by all metrics. The economy is booming, unemployment is down, our defenses are up, the wall's under construction, all across the board, we're safer, happier, and more prosperous than ever. But since that's happening under the president and possibly being attributed to Trump, Democrats, of course, can't let him or the country win. In fact, when you get right down to it, liberals would most likely rather our country do worse right now, and they would rather we fail, especially if it meant making their political opponent look bad. And in addition to all of this, it's also worth keeping the upcoming election in mind here too, for two big reasons. First of all, a good State of the Union for Trump, which is what eventually happened, well, this is surely going to help him garner more support and rally voters to his side come this November. And also, the Democratic side is currently in shambles this week. They just had their first primary or caucus in Iowa this week, and because of problems and errors and drama, we still don't even know who their actual winner is all these days later. And well, this botched Iowa caucus for the left is certainly going to overshadow this and everything they do in the foreseeable future, which includes them protesting and showing bad behavior at the recent State of the Union. Basically, the left-wingers are falling apart, and if they can't handle or run their own nomination process, do we really think they will be able to run this country? And now they're also lashing out at Trump as he and our side successfully accomplish our goals with grace and ease and on time and under budget. With all that said, let's now jump to the most triggered moments the liberals have had to offer this week. All of them mad, angry, or afraid because America's doing so well, despite the left not being in charge, or rather, we're actually succeeding because they're not in charge. Our first moment comes from none other than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the so-called Squad of Democrats. And although she's up first, she won't be the last Squad member appearing in today's video, that's for sure. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. First, let's check out this AOC tweet and see what she has to say. After much deliberation, I have decided that I will not use my presence at a state ceremony to normalize Trump's lawless conduct and subversion of the Constitution. None of this is normal, and I will not legitimize it. Consequently, I will not be attending the State of the Union. Aw, boo-hoo. And how will the world ever go on without you, Alex? Give me a break. This girl really thinks she's such a big deal, doesn't she? Please. Anyone outside of politics barely knows who you are, Alex. Just because you got this wave of attention and popularity in your first year in Congress for being the youngest and dumbest person in there ever, well, that doesn't mean you're some kind of celebrity now. Let alone are you this pure, noble arbiter of the truth, like how you appear to think of yourself. This tweet of hers just screams narcissistic, self-centered, and self-important to me. Like Lexi really thinks her not showing up to something is going to change the world or whatever. Yeah, right. And even worse, she acts like her presence at the ceremony would have given it some kind of boost of credibility going to Trump or something. Jesus Christ, lady, get over yourself. You're a B or C level Democratic congresswoman who's accomplished nothing in her short tenure. No one cares if you're not going to this. You won't be missed, and your presence isn't as important as you clearly think it is. In addition, Trump has not even had any lawless conduct, nor has he subverted or done anything wrong with the Constitution as you claim. Don't you guys think if Trump ever did something wrong, it would have already come out by now and been proven and held against him? Because I think that would have happened to him way back in 2015 or 16, before he was even voted for the nominee or elected president. These presidential candidates go through some of the most intense vetting and serious and layered and vast scrutiny you can ever imagine. Every single moment, minute, second, and every move and motion and word these candidates have said on record or on paper or in email, well, it all comes into question before they get elected. And then to make matters worse for AOC's case, Trump was additionally investigated for over 2 years after winning in 2016, which resulted in a bunk Mueller Mueller report, which also found out he committed no crimes. Finally, this past few weeks and months, Congress has moved to impeach Trump, but they're basing it all on a totally legal phone call he made, which has no evidence of him doing anything wrong. Put all that together, and I would say Trump is one of the least lawless people in politics, actually, because if he really had done anything wrong, surely it would have come up already by now. But instead, Democrats like AOC, they have to lie and make shit up and hope their low IQ followers just go along with their BS because they know they aren't likely to look into anything at all. Next, let's move on to two more members of the very embarrassing Democratic squad. Here, Ilhan Omar tweets out a picture before going to the State of the Union with her squad bestie, Rashida Tlaib, and these two obviously chose to dress up in some rather interesting foreign influence garb, which makes the text in Omar's tweet even more confusing when she says, "This is what America looks like." What? Really? I'm actually a bit flabbergasted by this statement, I'll admit. I mean, sure, America is more diverse than it's ever been now, but I really don't think this is what people would think of when they're trying to portray what Americans look like. Not only are these two girls brown minorities, they're also repping religious gear from a faith that's hardly practiced in our nation either. Add on to that the fact that they're purposely wearing African and Middle Eastern styled outfits in order to feed into their egos and make themselves stand out and seem special. Well, put all this together and this line really makes no sense. It's like posting a picture on Twitter saying, "This is what Saudi Arabians look like," and then that post has a picture of two white guys wearing suits and ties next to it. It makes no sense, but it does show a few things about the left and Omar here. They may be saying this is what America looks like, but really, they mean this is what they want America to look like. Their biased and anti-white nature has hardly been hidden before too. Clearly, they hate us and anyone who's not a brown minority like them. It also shows they're not here coming to America in a respectful way. They don't want to fit in and get along with us and assimilate and become part of our country properly. No, they want to come here and change what we are and make this country brown and shitty, just like the places they fled before they moved to the US. But apparently, although these two squad members opted to attend the speech, unlike AOC, but they appear to not have stayed long. As we can gather from reading this tweet from Rashida Tlaib, which says, "I walked out of that speech, the lies, the bigotry, and the shameless bragging about taking away food stamps that people depend on to live. It was all beneath the dignity of the office he occupies. Shame on this forever impeached president." Yeah, well, here's the thing about that recent so-called impeachment the Democrats squeezed through the House for biased reasons. Well, ironically enough, they've actually just shown the country and the world how meaningless impeachment even is. Sure, when you learn about it in school and you read the descriptions of it in government and history books, impeachment might sound pretty serious. Reading that the House and Senate can impeach the president, leveling charges against our highest executive official, that sounds pretty legit on paper. But now that we've seen it in practice and the ease with which a biased government can impeach someone just for not liking them, well, the left has literally belittled the whole process. And now that we all realize impeachment doesn't itself remove a president, but rather it's essentially just a statement of charges against him and not even showing if they're actually true, well, that seems like it's less and less important as this goes on. So while hack representatives like Tlaib will use the term dramatically, like impeachment's still a big deal, well, their actions and the willy-nilly nature of passing it, not to mention the laughing and gossiping and nonchalant ways the liberals have carried this whole thing out, well, it's undermining the whole severity of the process almost completely. And also, Tlaib walking out of this State of the Union because of so-called lies and bigotry, that's just bogus. Trump just stated simple facts and made a plan for success for all of the country. There was nothing political and nothing in it that involved bigotry whatsoever, except, of course, the president is of a certain race, and apparently they think his race is automatically bigoted, at least according to left-wingers. Next, let's get to the really good, really juicy stuff from this event. When the president approached his speaking stage on the night of the State of the Union, he of course sat in front of the VP, or Vice President, and also the Speaker of the House, as is tradition. And while the VP Mike Pence had a great night, showing lots of support and respect and positive encouragement for Trump, but the Speaker, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, she of course did quite the opposite. Not only was Nancy looking away during most of the speech, pretending to look at some papers the whole time even though we could all tell she was faking it, well, not only that, but Pelosi also fiddled with her teeth in her mouth, moving her tongue around, distracting us by playing with her dentures because she's older than most modern dentistry. But the icing that covered this BS cake was even better. At the end of the State of the Union speech, as things wrapped up, Nancy waited only a few brief seconds before she grabbed some papers in front of her and dramatically tore them in half, like she's acting on some sort of daytime soap opera drama or something. It really was awkward, over the top, petty, and quite offensive offensive, especially considering assuming that was a copy of the president's speech. Well, the speech was all about America, our people, and how we're doing well and going to make things better here. So this gesture and all the other Democrats and liberals and never Trumpers who refuse to stand or clap for anything, that ends up making the left-wingers look worse, since Trump wasn't even being very biased or political at all. He knew this would happen, so the president just kept things positive, pro-American, and pro-success for all of the world, including minorities and many other groups who got mentioned too. But Democrats stayed silent regardless, and they stayed seated, and in general, they looked like butthurt, sore losers who were mad they didn't get their way like little babies. And also, it's worth mentioning, there may be a bit of an explanation for why Nancy Pelosi herself got so peeved that night. Apparently, some are talking about Trump potentially snubbing her for a handshake right before the speech started. Check out this clip and see it for yourself. Pretty quick and hard to see if you're not paying attention, but basically, Trump hands Pelosi a folder, likely a copy of his speech for the records of the House. Then as Trump is turning away, Nancy goes in for a handshake. Now, whether Trump missed this intentionally is certainly debatable. It was a quick gesture while he was already turning away, happening in a loud and large room moments before he's going to give this big speech. Now, Trump is of course well trained and well versed in public speaking like this, but even the most talented speakers can still get caught up in the heat of the moment. Regardless, even if he did snub her on purpose, so what? Nancy has been railing against the guy publicly for years, saying some of the meanest, worst, and unproven wackadoo shit ever. Not to mention, she just led an impeachment of the guy, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did try and turn away before he had to shake her hand. Her gross, old, frail, almost dying hand. But maybe it was an accident here too, but either way, Nancy certainly overreacted to what happened and took it in the worst way possible, and even, I would say this fueled her bad behavior during and up until the end of the whole event. In the end, to Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, politics is all just a game to them. I go after you, you go after me, back and forth, and so on. But to President Donald J. Trump, this isn't a game. He has real goals he wants to achieve and promises to keep and fulfill for the American people. This is why Pelosi was legitimately shocked that Trump wouldn't shake her hand there, even after she got him impeached and slandered the guy for years. And that's because for politicians like her, this is all just a show, and they play their part in public but hang out with both sides privately at the cast after parties. Trump doesn't do it this way though. He plays for keeps, and that's why America's doing so well right now and so much shit in this country is getting done right. And remember, Trump has only been in office for about 3 years too, and he's already accomplished so much. Meanwhile, Democrats like Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Nadler, and Biden, they've been in politics for decades and decades, and all they've gotten done was getting themselves reelected and gaining more power and wealth for their own families privately, at the expense of the American people. Important distinction too, since Trump, of course, did quite the opposite. He and his family made their fortunes outside of politics before they even started thinking about running for elections. In fact, the Trump family could be making a lot more money right now if they weren't in politics, but instead of sitting pretty and letting their underlings run their companies and businesses and perhaps retiring, already a billionaire of course, who's made his name in this world too, well, instead of resting on his laurels, Donald J. Trump decided to take the time to run for president of the United States. And now that he won, he's going to spend 4 to 8 years making this nation the best it could be, despite the Democrats working against him every step of the way. What do you guys think? Did you watch the State of the Union address? Are the Democrats becoming worse and more unhinged each and every day? And why do you think Pelosi has never accomplished anything in her lengthy political career? Trump has done more in 3 years than Nancy ever did in over 30, and I think we all know why. Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.